Welcome back to Phyto Revival, the podcast, where wisdom is steeping, laughter is our favorite medicine, and our lived experience is what makes us human. Today we're talking about sun exposure, what it does, how it works, and where herbalism actually fits into the picture. We're going to cover UV radiation, PMLE, melanin, and the myth of natural SPF and spray tans, and how to stay safe this summer, and the complicated relationship some of us have with the sun. Because this is one of those topics where misinformation spreads fast, and your skin pays for it later. Let's start with understanding what we're actually dealing with. There are two main types of UV radiation that affect the skin, UVA and UVB. UVB is the one that most people recognize. It's the ray that causes the sunburn. It hits the surface of the skin and creates that immediate inflammation and redness. UVA is different, though. It penetrates even deeper into the skin. It's more constant throughout the day, and it's responsible for things like premature aging, pigmentation changes, oxidative stress, and long-term skin damage. And here's the part that people don't realize. UVA is the one that still reaches you even when you think you're protected. It can pass through window glass, some clothing, and even reach you while you're just sitting in the shade. Shade does not mean that you're protected, and it does not mean that there is zero exposure. When you sit under an umbrella, you're blocking the direct sunlight, but UV doesn't only come from above. It scatters throughout the atmosphere and reflects off of surfaces around you. Water, sand, and even the ground can bounce UV back up towards your skin. So while you often feel cooler, your skin is still being exposed, especially to UVA. Water adds another layer to this. It doesn't make UV stronger, but it does reflect it. And being wet can reduce your protection. So you're often getting exposure from above and below at the same time. Clothing can help this, but not all clothing protects equally. If you can see light through the fabric, UV can likely pass through it too. Thin, light-colored, or wet fabrics offer less protection. Darker colors, tighter weaves, and UPF-rated clothing offer significantly better protection. So that basic t-shirt, it's not a force shield. It's only partial coverage. Now let's talk about melanin. Think of melanin like the umbrella your skin holds over itself. The more melanin you have, the thicker and more intact that umbrella is. And it does a better job at absorbing and scattering UV radiation before it can damage the deeper layers of the skin. If you have less melanin, it's like holding an umbrella with holes in it. The more UV gets through faster. And then there are people like me. I burn in about 6 minutes. Yes, you heard that correctly. Only 6 minutes. And I get laughed at for it because people genuinely cannot comprehend burning that quickly unless they've experienced it themselves. I've burned while sitting in the shade. I've burned while being careful, and I've burned in situations where everyone around me felt completely fine. So when I say that umbrella has holes, I mean holes. But here's the important part. No one has a perfect umbrella. Even with more melanin, UV still gets through. It just happens more slowly. And when you tan, your body is trying to reinforce that umbrella by producing more pigment in response to stress. But that tan is still a response to UV damage, not protection built in advance. Some people don't just burn, but they can have a full-on reaction. PMLE, or polymorphic light eruption, is a photosensitivity reaction to UV exposure. For me, it's not merely just a rash. For me, it shows up as a rash that has been raised with hives on it, and every time the sun rays touch it, it feels like someone pouring acid all over your skin. The first time I remember this happening, I was around 8 years old during a week-long Girl Scout camp. The second major reaction was during my deployment to Iraq. The reaction became so severe that my section didn't know what to do with it. I was made to wear chemical glove inserts while simultaneously being accused of malingering, as if it was something I was faking. And then again in 2024, while in Los Cabos, Mexico, I stayed in the shade, I swam at night. I only spent maybe 10-15 minutes in the ocean, and within 48 hours, I was covered in PMLE. My arms, my chest were completely covered in a rash that most people did mistake for a sunburn. So if you look at someone's sunburn and it has a very irregular edge instead of a flat edge like a regular sunburn, most likely they're having a sun reaction. That's when you realize it's not about heat. It isn't about trying harder. It's about how your body is responding to the UV. And this is another misconception people have. Heat is not the same as UV exposure. You can feel cool and still burn. You can feel hot and not be getting the highest UV exposure of the day. Your skin responds to radiation, not temperature. Now let's clear up another major misconception about natural SPF. Now you'll hear people say certain oils and herbs naturally have SPF. And while plants absolutely contain antioxidant compounds, and some can absorb small amounts of UV in laboratory settings, that does not mean that they function like sunscreen in human skin. To be considered SPF, something has to A, be tested on human skin, B, applied at a specific thickness, C, remain stable in sunlight, and D, protect against both UVA and UVB. Most oils do not and will not meet these standards. So going back to the umbrella analogy, melanin is your built-in umbrella. A tested sunscreen is like carrying a reliable umbrella with you. But oils alone, that's like standing in the sun hoping a thin cloud covers you. And while we're here, let's talk about spray tans. A spray tan gives you color, but that's not melanin. It's a reaction occurring in the outermost layer of your skin. It changes the appearance of your skin, but it does not function like your skin's natural UV protection. So even though you look tan, your skin is still just as vulnerable to UV damage. And this is where people begin to get into trouble. Because when you look tan, you feel protected, so you stay outside longer. And that's when burns happen. There is a short period after a spray tan where the skin may have be a little more reactive or sensitive. Minimizing direct sun during that window is smart. But the larger issue is the false sense of protection. Spray tan changes how your skin looks, not how it handles the sun. Now, let's talk sunscreen reapplication. SPF is often explained as a multiplier. So theoretically, if you burn in 10 minutes, SPF 30 would give you 300 minutes of protection. But real life does not work that cleanly. You sweat, you swim, you underapply, you wipe it off accidentally. UV intensity changes throughout the day. So instead of trying to perfectly calculate it, make sure you're reapplying every 2 hours, reapply after swimming or sweating, and reapply sooner if you burn easily. If you're someone like me with an extremely short burn window, your margin for error is almost non-existent. SPF is not a timer. It's a buffer. Now, despite everything that I've said, I do not believe the sun is the enemy. Sun exposure plays an important role for our lives. Circadian rhythm regulation, mood and mental health, vitamin D synthesis, hormone signaling, immune communication within the body. And here's something fascinating about redheads specifically. Because of differences in our melanin pathways, redheads may actually produce more vitamin D more efficiently in lower UV conditions. So while many of us burn faster, we may also require less exposure to obtain certain benefits. It's a biological trade-off: the good, the bad, and the ugly. And finally, this is where herbalism truly shines. Not as your primary protection from the sun, but as a support and recovery. After sun exposure, the skin often needs anti-inflammatory support, cooling, hydration, barrier repair, antioxidant support. And this is where herbs like aloe, calendula, plantain, chickweed, and oats actually make sense. One important note: avoid putting essential oils on fresh sunburns. Damaged skin is more reactive, and fragrance compounds can make irritation worse. My relationship with the sun has been both damaging and informative. It has taught me that not all bodies respond the same way, that protection is not optional for everyone, and that herbalism works best when we understand its role honestly. Use modern tools for protection. Use plant medicine for support and recovery. Because at the end of the day, shade is medicine, clothing is medicine, sunscreen is medicine, and herbs are there to help your skin recover after the exposure has already happened. This episode is for educational purposes only, and it is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure. And always consult a qualified professional for personalized care. Until next time, stay curious, stay grounded, and take care of yourselves naturally.